Welcome to Manifest the Big Stuff, your weekly reminder to take advantage of the power of quantum paradigms to help you manifest your most important desires. Today, I am pumped to introduce you to Michael Morgan, an entrepreneur, college student, and reality creator, and a former student of mine who was front and center 2 years ago for my most significant and impactful intentional manifestation so far. On my next episode, I'm going to dive into that manifestation in great detail. But first, today, you are about to be treated to a creatively on fire conversation about manifesting. Among other things, Michael and I are going to discuss the importance of filling your metaphorical swimming pool with water before you go swimming when you're intentionally manifesting. Why radical honesty beats positive affirmations every time, and you won't want to miss it when we reveal exactly when to align your actions with your beliefs and your beliefs with your actions. I'm Greg Kuhn, the Law of Attraction science guy, author of the life-altering Why Quantum Physicists book series, and your host. I was incredibly inspired by my talk with Michael, and I can't wait for you to hear it too. Let's get started. I want to welcome today my second ever guest on Manifest the Big Stuff, Michael Morgan. Michael, say hi, please.
Hey, how's it going? I am honored to be here, and I'm really excited to jump into this conversation.
I want to start out by introducing Michael Morgan to you. Michael is 20 years old. He's an entrepreneur, a student, and a reality creator. This fall, Michael will be entering his junior year of studying economics at the University of Kentucky. Now, economics is not the only thing that Michael has studied in college. It's actually the fourth major he's had. So he's very curious or he's very indecisive.
One of those two.
Or a combination. Yeah, he's set to graduate in 2024 with a Bachelor's of Science in Economics and Psychology, and he's got a minor in Spanish and Computer Science. So, Michael, I guess I should have said hola.
Por supuesto.
Okay, you lost me already. Michael is also the founder of a specialized digital marketing agency called Pareto Digital Solutions. Pareto works with direct-to-consumer e-commerce businesses that are eager and ambitious, businesses that are determined to scale their brand as quickly as possible. It's pretty exciting. As Pareto's name suggests, Michael's agency doubles down on the most important activities which move the needle for their clients. Pareto focuses on one channel, Facebook and Instagram paid traffic, and they do it very well. While Pareto keeps their focus on paid traffic via Facebook advertising, they also have the advertising know-how to help their clients grow through other means, such as multi-stage funnels, copywriting, email marketing, and even conversion rate optimization. Those are pretty fancy marketing terms. I say fancy because I don't understand them fully, but Michael does. Michael graduated from DuPont Manual High School in Louisville, Kentucky in 2020. DuPont Manual, by the way, is the 42nd ranked high school in the United States by U.S. News and World Reports. And that's of all the high schools in the United States. And then among magnet high schools is the number 16 high school in the United States. So this is a place that attracts very hardworking, very ambitious, very invested young people. Michael came into DuPont Manual as a high school university major. He was a central figure in one of my most successful and even surprising manifestations so far. I wanted to bring him on Manifest the Big Stuff because of his role and his participation in that manifestation. The manifestation I'm speaking of is the fruition of the Honeycomb, which is a 21st century learning lab that Manual's Alumni Foundation and Development Office brought to life in partnership with Kindred Healthcare in 2019. I was the executive director of the Crimson Mission Alumni Foundation before I retired. When it came time for the grand opening of this almost $350,000 21st century project-based learning lab, I picked Michael to be front and center, representing Manual, representing the Crimson Mission Alumni Foundation, representing the development office. And he got to go up and speak, give remarks at the press conference. He was at the dais with some luminaries, the mayor, the president of Metro Council, our superintendent of schools, the CEO of Kindred Healthcare, all the local media were there. I picked Michael to represent all of us. Sitting back and watching that happen and seeing my manifestation come to fruition, it was exciting then, and it's exciting now to come back 2 years later and reconnect with Michael. Michael, at the time that you were in my development class, did you have a notion of manifesting? Was that something that was on your radar?
No, at the time, definitely not at all. I've sort of always been someone who's interested in different ideas, and I think I maybe had heard you mention quantum physics once or twice, and I was just sort of like, "Oh, that seems pretty interesting," but I never really took that dive to really understand it.
Michael, you may not have had manifesting on your radar, but that is not the case now, correct?
Yeah, yeah. So it was like a lot of things in my life that I've sort of come into contact with. I found out about sort of manifesting and quantum physics through books. Because I've been a really big reader ever since sort of the end of high school, and sort of the only thing that's changed is sort of the topic of the books that I've read. So I actually think the very first book that may have sort of opened my eyes to the ideas of manifesting might have been a psychology book. I know I also read a book by Eckhart Tolle, which really sort of planted the first seed in my mind, which was basically the idea that whatever you think about, you're going to get more of just because you're focused on that thing. And by the nature of how our, brains work, that thing is going to become more prevalent in your life. And so that was sort of, a very basic, more sort of materialist perspective I had on it. And once I read a book earlier this year by Joe Dispenza. I think it's called Becoming Supernatural. And when I read the ideas from that book, a lot of things really started to turn in my mind and become cemented about really what this whole thing was about.
As an entrepreneur, law of attraction seems almost tailor-made because you're sailing into the sea as the captain, the first mate, and the crew of your boat.
Yeah. Wow. That's a really good analogy, I think, because now that you say it, if you think about it, sort of with reality and manifestation, the sky really is the limit. There is no sort of end to what you can create and become. And it's the exact same principle with entrepreneurship. But one of the things that I think you may resonate with is once you find out about the law of attraction and manifestation, it's not really that concept just is born right then and there. You start to sort of look back on your life and realize the ways that you were already using these principles and they were already at play. And one example for me is that I've usually been someone who was good at, the whole school thing. I just my mind sort of worked in a way that allowed me to do well in school. And so I found myself never really having, test anxiety or being stressed about classes. And I think that's a really big example of the law of attraction because I usually always had pretty high expectations for myself and I didn't really stress myself over those expectations.
I can remember asking you to speak at that press conference for the grand opening of the Honeycomb. And I knew the type of people that were going to be present. I knew the kind of media coverage it was going to get. I knew how special it was. Part and parcel, the fact that there wasn't and still isn't any other public high school in the state of Kentucky that has an alumni foundation or a development office. Those things have always been the purview of private and parochial schools, and public schools have been seen as not needing to do that. However, really every school, not just DuPont Manual, struggles with the needs, meeting the needs of their students above and beyond the limitations of what public funding can provide. That's a lot that was going on, that the honeycomb was born into this world with a lot of expectations and carrying some heavy weight. Did you feel any of that? What was your awareness at the time?
I understood that it was a really great project and a cool opportunity that you were leading, and that, we were bringing this really amazing, technology and opportunity center to Manual. But I didn't have the perspective of it being as groundbreaking as it was.
The fact that, your role in the grand opening and your public facing presence wasn't such a huge deal to you speaks to me that you carry with you the expectation that things like this are going to be part of your life, that it is not a surprise to you when you encounter opportunities, the way that participation affirms success and affirms capability, affirms the appropriateness of you being a part of such success because of who you are. What a wonderful gift.
Yeah, yeah, that's actually a really good point now that you mention it. And another way that I just really think I was, extremely blessed, with the sort of core principles and beliefs that were instilled in me even before I became aware of sort of the larger workings of reality and stuff like that.
So, talk a little bit about the larger workings of reality. Your version of reality, the one that Michael Morgan creates that is unique to you, is so unique to you. It is so special that it would not exist without you. How do you see your role in context with reality? How do you see yourself as a reality creator?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think right now, sort of, my beliefs are always sort of shifting and updating, but right now I sort of see my role as the source of everything that is. Everything I experience and see is a result of my beliefs and intentions. Not a feeling of control, but a certain sense of being in the driver's seat, because you start to understand the ways in which what you see is being created by you.
You're an entrepreneur. So, right now, instead of talking to me, you could be out hustling for Pareto. And later today, there are probably going to be times where you're going to continue to be making those decisions. How do you make peace with your allocation of time? Do you lean into inspiration? Is it a combination of inspiration and schedule setting? What's your framework look like?
I just really enjoy having a morning routine that makes time for me to sort of reflect and see what I am in the process of creating, while also giving me some time to, actually get a little bit of work done moving forward. So I feel like if I can start every day with that same sort of mindset for each morning, that it's gonna continue to work out.
That's interesting. In fact, I was just writing about that the other day.
Hmm.
That I'm a runner, and for me, if I boiled down the act of running to its essential element, it would be engaging my core muscles in every moment. To translate that over, if I boil down my non-running life to its essential element, it's the same thing. Focusing on using my core muscles every moment. And when you talk about getting up early, pairing yourself, setting the stage, setting the table for however joyful and productive and engaging your day can be, and however you can best take advantage of the opportunities offered, that's a core muscle, right? That's a basic foundational practice. It's a best practice. It's a success habit. When times get tough, as a runner, when I'm running up a hill, the first thing I want to do is forget all about my form and forget all about my core muscles and just fall back on things just to get me through this moment and get me to the top of the hill. When I do that, it does get me to the top of the hill. And I don't think there's a punishment for that decision to abandon focusing on my core and focusing on my form. However, I do surrender the opportunity that I had to stay focused on those things amid slightly more challenging circumstances. When you talk about setting the stage for your day in the morning, I do that. I journal every morning, and I call that aligning myself vibrationally with my desires. I start every day by aligning myself vibrationally with my desires. If manifesting intentionally is like swimming, aligning myself vibrationally with my desires is like filling the pool up with water.
I'm curious, what is do you follow a prompt when you journal each morning, or is it sort of how does that work?
What I focus on is to recognize that the sun came up and my eyes opened. I now have the gift of the opportunity to be fully alive in each moment, the opportunity to intentionally manifest a version of reality that is aligned with my desires for it. The reality that I experience, the version of reality I experience, is nothing more and nothing less than a reflection of my current beliefs and a reflection of what I am ready for. I typically remind myself that encountering a version of reality that is displeasing, that indicates that my current beliefs are not capable of reflecting a reality that I desire, it's not a punishment. I'm not being chastised because I'm not dependent on a giver of gifts outside of me to confer upon me, to give me what it is I'm looking for. I'm not dependent upon deserving the version of reality I want. I'm not dependent upon earning the version of reality that I want. The quantum field is my partner in manifesting my version of reality. The quantum field does not do anything for me. It doesn't say, well, Greg, boy, you sure were great help around the kitchen last night. So, you know what? Even though your beliefs are not aligned with the reality you desire right now, I'm going to go ahead and give it to you. That is not how the quantum field works. The quantum field works by meeting me where I am in this moment with no judgment and acting like a mirror of my beliefs, a mirror of what I am ready to experience. That journaling, or my journaling, does wind up sounding a bit like traditional positive affirmations because I do reference my desire and I do reference unlimited potential the quantum field has to manifest and reflect anything in partnership with me. I also know that it's okay to discover that I'm not quite where I'd fully like to be. It doesn't mean the opportunity wasn't there, and it doesn't mean that the opportunity dissipates.
I really like that. Really like the fact that it is sort of, like you said, you don't follow a prompt. It is more free flowing, but it is also a really great sign that it usually is aligning around those same things and sort of serving as a reminder and a primer for the life that you're living. And mine is largely similar. Usually about the first hour of my day follows the same routine. Wake up, go outside, usually sit on my deck and just chug a bottle of water and just really I try to be very, very still in those first 10 minutes of the day and just really experience everything going on. Something I've been thinking about a lot more recently is this saying that I sort of adapted, but it's sort of like you want to experience the world and not just the words. Because I think a lot of times we can overlook and take things for granted, like a tree, for example, or a bird, because we may look at it and say, "Oh, that's just a tree. That's just a bird." But really those are just labels, that's not really what that thing is. I try to just, especially in the morning, just be very intentional with where my awareness is and make it as broad as possible. And then I usually go and meditate for 25 to 30 minutes. And that is usually, I try to be very still. So I guess the first 30 minutes of my day, I try to be very still and sort of keep the flow of thoughts to a minimum. It's not really like a challenging thing. I just sort of let it come naturally. And then after that, I sort of do a journaling process as well. I usually write a couple of things that I'm grateful for from the day before. And usually I make these different every day. And I try to just think of random things, random coincidences and synchronicities that were just, really made my day. Sometimes you can get the idea that each day is the same sort of routine or you're doing the same sort of things, but always just being aware of the gifts that are presented to you every day. I think that gets me very excited for what's to come. And then I've actually created something that I call like my mindset folder, quote unquote, a collection of images, words, and just sort of reminders that usually I create and work on when I'm feeling, very elevated in a very like high state and in tune. And so it's usually a lot of things like you said, reminding me of, what this reality is that I'm creating, that I'm participating in, and really how I would like to show up in it and what I would like to create. After I do that, then usually I'm good to get started with a little burst of work. But that's usually about the first hour of my morning.
Occasionally, I notice that I drift into a perspective such as, okay, I'm good with this. I'm on this vibrational frequency of success. I feel great about who I am. I feel great about the opportunities and I feel inspired. I don't need to do this anymore. you know, I can move on and I can bypass this because it's taken up some of my valuable time. To sit here and be still and put myself intentionally into a good vibrational energy space. Good. I can bypass some of that stuff and get on with the productivity of the day. And when I notice that I've slid into that, I'm reminded that doing foundational things make practical things, if you will, or even the chores so much less like chores. When I'm inspired by a high energy state or an aligned vibrational state, life is so much more pleasant.
Yep, and it's exactly, that's where, that's really the best times because it's when work doesn't feel like work and everything just feels like it's, for your benefit. That's always, the goal of sort of those reminders and statements because that's when you start to realize that's really what reality is. It should be pleasant and bliss. So you try to anchor yourself in those mind states.
Yeah, that state of awe, of
Mhm.
wonder, of discovery, of being a creative entity that is not fixed, that is not predetermined and isn't encountering a fixed and predetermined reality. When I go out into the world, I'm encountering other people, places, and things over which I have very little control. Obviously, there are things I can do to positively influence outcomes, but there's always one thing that is fully within my scope of control: me, my state of being, the entity that I bring to each of those interactions, and the meaning and the value that those people, places, and things and my interactions with them can hold for me. It's so important to have practices that remind us, oh, wait a minute, what am I in charge of? I'm in charge of one thing, and that is being as intentional as I'm willing to be in creating my unique version of this reality. At the end of the day, focusing on satisfying myself and giving my best efforts to do that is a wonderful litmus test. Much more encouraging and empowering than a litmus test that's based solely on the results of my actions. So if you're going to base how you quantify the quality of your manifesting, if you're going to base that on the results, that can be quite a setup for you.
Yeah, that's actually a very good and interesting point, and I really liked what you were talking about before. I think one of the ways that maybe a lot of people who are new to sort of reality creation and manifestation, they might think, oh, if you're creating your reality, then nothing bad should happen. And you might say, well, it's up to you're the one who decides whether something is bad or good. A lot of times, just taking a step back from my mind and realizing that in so many instances throughout the day, your mind is just looking for reasons to be upset and to be bothered. So it's like you may be sitting in traffic and your mind is like, we got to get there, or this is so boring. You are not the one who's upset or angry or annoyed. You're the one who's observing this feeling. And when you start to just realize, like, we're in traffic right now, it makes no sense to upset yourself about being here because this is what is happening right now. So you can either create a negative experience and just wish you were where you were going, or you could create a very positive experience and look around at the trees and listen to a podcast maybe, or just enjoy the silence of just existence. And another thing that's actually such a great point that you made about not basing, maybe your quality of manifestation on the outcome. And that's definitely something that I've been thinking about, and sort of dealing with a lot recently, because I've only been a full-time, entrepreneur with a legit company for a few months now. And so especially, in the early stages of starting anything, starting any business, it's going to feel like you're not making as much progress as you really are. So I think that is just a very good sort of shift and anchoring point.
Let's hope that somebody right now was starting to get frustrated because they were sitting in traffic, and then this podcast, this very podcast was very helpful to them. Michael, one of the things that I say as the law of attraction science guy is that manifesting is what every single human being is doing. Animals and other forms of life may be doing it too. I have no idea, but I know that humans are. And so the moment that we opened our eyes, breathed life, had awareness and presence in this, 3D time space, we began to manifest a version of reality, a version of material reality that was completely unique to each one of us. Each day that our eyes are open and we're breathing in life and we're present in the moment, we're continuing to do that. So when it comes to manifesting, that's not an esoteric concept that one has to learn how to do, because you're already doing it. What you can learn to do, however, is become more intentional with it, right? So I find myself sitting in a traffic jam, and as you said, being a powerful creator of reality doesn't mean that I change what I'm thinking and all of a sudden the traffic jam's gone. I've never met anyone with that capacity. I certainly don't have that capacity. However, what you also spoke to, as a powerful reality creator, I can find myself sitting in a traffic jam and I can begin to develop my own meaning and value for that, which doesn't necessarily mean that my goal is to say, hey, I'm so happy to be sitting here in traffic. This is really what I want to be doing. That type of positive affirmation approach, it's too much of a quantum leap to have the type of effect that I really want to elicit. That can change my conscious awareness. In fact, it often does change my conscious awareness, and there's nothing wrong with that. And sometimes it's great, but I really like to speak to my subconscious, and have found that speaking to my subconscious does have an effect on changing my beliefs, growing my beliefs more into alignment. And my subconscious, for that to happen, I have to speak the truth to it. Telling myself the best believable story. I want to stress believable. So for me to say, I'm so happy that I'm in this traffic jam. This is really what I wanted. This is great. It will make me perhaps feel better right there in the moment. However, my subconscious is like, Greg, that's BS. We know that's not true. Henceforth, we're not giving those thoughts any access down here to our amygdala, where our beliefs are stored. We're keeping all that sacrosanct from your BS. And it's not saying that in a judgmental way. It's just saying, hey, as a gatekeeper of your amygdala, I know that you're not speaking the truth right now. Henceforth, I'm not going to let those sentiments bleed in down here and mess things up, because we got everything exactly like we want them to be for your optimal safety as a human being. When I tell the best feeling believable story, it'll be often akin to what you said, where I say, maybe I can make some use out of this traffic jam. Maybe I'm being given this time for a reason. Maybe something can come out of this that I wasn't expecting. Maybe this is an opportunity for me to practice some of the characteristics and attributes that I want to cultivate in myself, like patience, presence, like letting go of unrealistic expectations or other things similar to that. Even something devastating that can't be changed, the death of a loved one, let's say. I am not probably going to be able to turn that into anything wonderful. And that's not even my goal. But my goal is, even amid devastating, unwarranted, unasked for pain, tragedies, inequities, things that are being put upon me that I don't have the capacity to wash away, like death, loss, absence, being unable to attain certain things that I really wanted. And that's painful. Even amidst those circumstances, I would like to retain as much capacity and agency as possible. I would like to continue to grow and be shaped as a human being in the direction of what I would characterize as success. That possibility remains inherent in every moment if I'm willing to seek it. But it doesn't necessarily have to, or actually isn't best sought by blindly stating the most positive things I can think of. Have you
Mm.
ever have you experimented with positive affirmations?
Yeah, I have before, and I've sort of, like you said, gotten, not probably the best feeling from them because it feels sort of like sliding, it's in one ear and out the other. So exactly like you're saying, I think radical self honesty is one of the most important tools for growth because, a lot of times, we may be at first sort of feel fearful of being fully honest with those around us, but it's probably surprising the number of people who aren't willing to be honest with themselves, and I know because it was difficult for me for a long time, and it still is with certain things to really look at what you're feeling and what your thoughts are and say, "This is what my belief is," and it's likely been, negatively affecting me for some time.
A traditional positive affirmation, telling myself things that don't jibe with how I really feel in the moment, what I really see in the moment, what I really believe in the moment, pumping myself up, if you will. I call that growing a mustache by drawing it in the mirror. I really want a mustache, so I'm going to bring a Sharpie into my bathroom. I'm going to stand here very still. I'm going to reach out to the mirror and I'm going to draw a mustache over my reflection. Voila, I have a mustache. And as long as I stand here right in this spot, I will always have a mustache. And actually, it's true. I have a mustache as long as I stand there in that spot. But that's not really the kind of mustache that I want to have, is it? I want a mustache that I can get out and walk around town with. And to me, that's the difference between, as you said, radical self honesty that is there for me to learn from, not to beat myself up with, but to learn from. So when I'm looking in that mirror and instead of drawing a mustache on the mirror, I might say, wow, look at that. I don't have a mustache. I'm not closing the door on the potential for me to authentically grow a mustache, but I am saying, I don't really like it. I don't really like that I don't have a mustache. What can I learn from that? And how
Mm.
will that shape my mindset, my preparation, my engagement, my activities moving forward? That's the
Yeah.
value of radical self honesty over, let's say, a traditional positive affirmation. And ultimately, anytime you're using a traditional positive affirmation, you're obviously not really feeling like the affirmation you're stating. If I look in the mirror and say, I'm good enough and I'm okay. Well, I don't do that when I feel good enough and feel okay because
Yeah.
I don't need to do that. Hence, while it's really a harsh way to put it, a positive affirmation of that type, it's always a lie.
Mm.
Otherwise, we wouldn't need to say it. We'd never say it.
That's where, once you start going down the rabbit hole of sort of manifestation, it starts getting, very meta, and you can run into some confusion. And one way that I think I've thought about it before is like, you're standing in the mirror and you're like, I easily make thousands of dollars a month. I'm a money magnet. Does LeBron James do that? Does Warren Buffett tell themselves that they make a lot of money? They just do it because that's who they are. And so if that's what you're doing, I think a better thing to look at is, okay, maybe I'm not making as much money as I could. Well, what do I think constitutes someone who makes a lot of money? Do I not see myself actually as someone who's worth that amount of money? And if that's not the case, then you need to align your actions with what you believe, or you need to align your beliefs with your actual actions. And that can be a difficult process to go through internally.
Yes. And actually, next to impossible without that self honesty.
Hmm.
Because if I'm continuing to pump myself up full of feel good statements, which are making me feel good, it's a little bit like wearing my dad's shoes around the house and telling myself that I'm a grown up. If I want to be that grown up, I don't want to just be that grown up while I'm in my house with my dad's shoes on. That's not really the experience of reality that I'm seeking. I'm seeking leaving the house and encountering the wide world that I'm a part of and being that grown up, or whatever the case may be. And you know what? That being, that approach to living by being, that's not a destination. We don't cross the goal line or the finish line and say, whew, did that. Okay, check that off the list. Now I can move on to something else. It's actually a daily decision. It's a daily perspective, really looping back the importance of, filling the pool, setting the tone, starting the day, being vibrationally aligned, and carrying that energy with me forward through the day. What words of advice would you have if you could speak to Michael Morgan when he was 17, 18 years old? What words of advice would you have?
Yeah, I would say definitely get in line with your heart and what really makes you feel good, what you're interested in, and follow that. That's largely something I've done, and I know most of my resistance and struggle has come when I wasn't following what I really felt was deeply right in my heart. More often than not, your internal guidance system is going to take you exactly where you need to be, and a lot easier. It sounds cliche, but I mean, all cliche advice is true. But stay true to yourself and do what really excites you and makes you feel interested and makes you feel like you. You have to really think, and this is something that where maybe the other stuff can seem more esoteric and sort of you need to convince yourself, but just logically, even though there are billions of people on Earth, no one alive or dead has had the exact same experiences as you. No one alive or dead has the exact same likes, dislikes, preferences, ideas, thought patterns. No one has read the same combination of books and blog posts as you. You have a literally one in billions ability and passion and ideas that no one else could even think to have. You are worth an infinite amount of money in terms of your uniqueness and your ability. So the best returns in life come from leaning into that and finding where you are uniquely the best and uniquely passionate.
Wise words and good words to leave us with, Michael. Thank you again for appearing. It truly was a pleasure to have this conversation with you.
Yeah, I had a really good time. You already know, it was a good conversation when you walk away feeling more energized than you were when you started. So, thank you so much for having me on.
And now, a brief, powerful tip you can employ right now in your intentional manifesting. Walter Payton said, "When you're good at something, you'll tell everyone. When you're great at something, they'll tell you." That quote highlights the importance of outside feedback to your manifesting. While pleasing yourself is your surest path to manifesting a desire, Listen to what others tell you. That feedback can be invaluable for adjusting your sales or making slight course corrections. Thank you for joining us today. Just like when I met Michael Morgan back in 2018, who knows what might come of our time spent together today? Please make sure I can stay in contact with you by downloading your free copy of my life-altering book, How Reversing 7 Words Can Change Your Life, by visiting my website today at whyquantumphysicists.com. I'll have an email address for you, which I'll never abuse or share, and you'll have a book about the quantum foundations of how I manifest the big stuff. Also, please make a point to tell a friend about Manifest the Big Stuff. Until we meet again, which I hope is real soon, make the most of your time, and I'll do likewise.